I learned how to read a room long before I learned how to relax inside of one. It wasn't something anyone taught me directly. It was more like a skill that developed out of necessity. You pay attention, you listen closely. You notice tone and posture, what's being said and what isn't. You learn how to adjust yourself so things don't tip too far in either direction. At some point, that becomes normal. You don't think of it as vigilance, you think of it as responsibility. You tell yourself you're just being considerate, helpful, mature for your age. What you don't notice right away is that you're always slightly braced. I became the calm one, the one that didn't try to make things harder, the one that could hold space, smooth things over, keep the temperature down. And for a long time, that felt like strength. It felt like competence. It felt like love. But there is a cost to that role. When you spend enough time regulating the room, you stop asking who's regulating you. You learn how to carry weight quietly, and then you forget that it's weight at all. It just becomes the way you move through the world. I didn't grow up thinking of myself as someone who needed attention or reassurance. If anything, I learned not to need too much. I learned how to be self-contained, how to disappear into imagination when things felt unpredictable, how to find safety in stories, in characters, in worlds where the rules made sense. Performance didn't feel like escape. It felt like permission. On stage, I was allowed to be fully present, fully expressive, fully seen, and that contrast mattered, because off stage, I was still the one managing energy, maintaining balance, making sure nothing tipped too far. That pattern followed me longer than I realized. Even as life became more successful on the outside, the inner posture didn't change. I was still measuring, still adjusting, still careful not to disturb the equilibrium, even when the equilibrium wasn't actually calm. See, there's a difference between peace and control. I didn't understand that for a long time. Being the calm one means you're the last one to admit that something isn't working. You can endure almost anything, so you do. You tell yourself it's fine. You normalize the strain. You keep moving because stopping feels riskier than continuing. Endurance becomes a substitute for purpose. At some point, though, that kind of calm starts to crack. Not loudly, not all at once, just enough to get your attention if you're willing to listen. I had to face the possibility that what I called steadiness was sometimes just silence. That what I thought was strength was occasionally avoidance. That being needed isn't the same thing as being known. That was uncomfortable. It required honesty without drama. It required looking at my life without turning it into a story that I could perform my way through. The shift didn't come from blowing anything up in my life. It came from asking quieter questions. What happens if I stop managing everyone else's experience? What happens if calm isn't something I provide, but something I choose for myself? What happens if I let myself be affected without feeling like I have to fix it? Those questions don't produce instant answers. They produce space, and space, I've learned, is where calm actually lives. Real calm isn't the absence of conflict. It's the absence of self-betrayal. It's knowing when to stay engaged and when to step back. It's allowing yourself to be human without apologizing for it. It's choosing stillness not as a retreat, but as alignment. If you've been the calm one for a long time, this might resonate in ways that are hard to explain. You might be tired without feeling exhausted. You might be successful without feeling settled. You might be holding everything together while quietly wondering when you get to exhale. There's nothing wrong with you. You learned what you needed to learn to survive. The question now is whether that strategy still serves who you're becoming. Calm doesn't have to be earned through endurance. It doesn't have to be the reward at the end of a long performance. It can be a decision, a boundary, a way of relating to yourself that doesn't require constant monitoring. You're allowed to put some of that weight down. You're allowed to stop reading the weather. And you're allowed to discover who you are when calm is no longer your role, but your foundation. Your destiny is waiting.